Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to go over all of the books on my physical TBR. I like to do this about once a year, and I thought since I haven't done it in a while, I feel like January is the best time to do this. So this shelf right here and then this stack are my current physical TBR. I think I have just under 30 books on here. I haven't quite updated all of my numbers yet. I have a physical TBR shelf that I put onto my Goodreads that just kind of helps me keep track of how many I do have on my physical TBR. I have added some in the last week or so, and I know I have another book coming this next week. I pre-ordered Onyx Storm, so that'll be added to my physical TBR. And there's one more book that I do want to purchase here in the near future, which is the sequel to a book that I have lent out right now. But without further ado, let's get started. We're gonna go through all the books on my physical TBR, how long I've had them, and any interesting stories behind them, or if they're borrowed, anything like that. So the first thing I need to do is go grab all the books off my shelf. So I've sorted or pulled all the books off my shelf, and I've kind of sorted them into some stacks. So hopefully this has some sort of rhyme or reason, but these are all the books on my physical TBR. So I grabbed my first stack of books, and my first book that I have is The Death and Life of the Great Lakes. This is a book that's been on my shelf since 2018. I did start it and get about 90 pages into it in 2024, but this one is on my priority TBR to finish before the end of 2025. This is one of 4 books that were on my TBR at the beginning of 2024 that I did not get to. So let's go through the rest of the books that I did not get to that were on my TBR at the beginning of 2024 and are now carried over to my 2025 TBR. My next one is Me to We. This is one that I got in 2017 or 2018, and this is a book that I was gifted. It is about like finding who you are in a world full of things. The book, I was gifted it by a supervisor who really loves this book, lives by it, really finds a lot of value in it, and so he gave it to all of us who worked in housing with him. So this is one that I want to finally get to. I did start this at one point in time, probably in 2017 or 2018 when I got it. So that's one that I need to get to in this next year. Also, The Death and Life of the Great Lakes. That was a free book from my university's Go Big Read program. The next book that is on my priority TBR and that has been on my bookshelf for over a year is the autobiography of Eleanor Roosevelt. I actually picked this up from a used bookstore in my local area, and I really need to get to this book. I'm a little bit intimidated to read it. One, this book is so heavy, like physically heavy, and 2, like the font in it is really small. But then as I flip through it, there's like pictures with captions spread throughout. But I really need to get to this book. Plus, if I get to this book soon, it can wrap up my biography project that I have been working on for a while. So this is a book that I need to get to soon. And then the 4th book that has been on my physical TBR for over a year is Hidden Figures. This is a book I also purchased secondhand. I have seen the movie of this, but I don't think I've ever read the book. This is actually on my January TBR, and I am definitely going to at least start it in the month of January. That is my promise to myself. So I'm gonna put this one down here because this is where I keep my current TBR. Now I'm gonna go through the rest of my January TBR that I pulled, If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. The book that I am currently reading, I literally just started this. I'm only 4 pages in. I started it today, is It Happened One Summer. In the 4 pages so far, I don't like the character, so we'll see if that changes. But this is a book that I am currently reading. This is a book that I got from my sister that she does not want back, so depending upon how I like it, it'll either get added to my collection or passed on to a little free library. The next book on my January TBR is Star in the Storm. This is a children's book that my boyfriend bought me in, I think, about February or March of last year, because we were talking about Newfoundlands and Newfoundland, and that's what this book is about. So I want to get to this. It's only let's see, it's not very long, 120 pages, so I should be able to read this pretty quickly. And then the last book on my January TBR that I had pulled is Saint. I purchased this book new in about March, I believe, of last year, because I bought the entire Narrows collection, and this is about the character Saint and his story. So I want to finish this one off in January, because then I will finish off everything in that universe and in that series. So those were the 4 books left on my January TBR, and the 3 and 4th book that started on my TBR at the beginning of 2024. Now I'm going to go into my stack of all the books that I currently have borrowed out from other people. So this is my stack of books that has currently been borrowed from other people. So I'm going to go through these, about when I borrowed the books from them, and yeah, just a little bit of story behind them. So we'll start here at the top. I have Frozen River by Ariel Lawhon. This one I just borrowed from my mom in December. So this is an author that I've read some other books by, and I've enjoyed those books. I have read I Was Anastasia, I've read Conan Helene, and I've read one more book by her. I can't remember the other one I've read, so I'm excited to read this. So I'm just very intrigued on what is going to happen in this book. Plus, I think the cover is beautiful. The next borrowed book that I have is Becoming by Michelle Obama. This is another book I borrowed out from my mom. I think I borrowed this from her in January or February of last year, so I really should get to this so I can read it and return it, because I've had that one out for a while from her. Another book that was borrowed to me about the same time from my mom, again, is The Little Wartime Library. This one I think I did put on a TBR last year at some point. The font is pretty big in this book. It is a pretty thick book, but I want to read this and return it. In the last year, I've kind of taken a little bit of a break from historical fiction. I've read a ton of historical fiction. It used to completely be my genre. I primarily only read historical fiction, and I think I burnt myself out from it a little bit, but I'm very excited to read this. I love books, love stories about libraries and books, so this should be a pretty quick read, hopefully, when I get to it. Let's see. Another book that I've borrowed out is Threshing of Straw. This is a book that is borrowed to me from my partner's mom. She read it for one of her book clubs. I'm not sure if she wants it back or not. She's one who passes on a book and says just keep passing it along. I did borrow it to my mom, and then my mom gave it back to me so I can give it back to my boyfriend's mom. So she's actually coming next weekend, so maybe I will put this on this stack and see if I get to it in the next week. Hopefully we'll see, because Onyx Storm does come out this week. So I'm gonna set that there for right now. Another book that I have borrowed out, this one is again from my mom. I borrowed this from her in November, I believe, And this is like a mystery thriller type book by Louise Penny. I think I've read one or two other books by this author, and I enjoyed the writing and the storytelling. So I'm interested in this one, and it takes place in a monastery in Quebec. Yeah, in Quebec. So I'm hoping to get to this one soon as well because it just sounds very interesting. The next book I have is A Man Called Ove. This is one I actually borrowed from my partner's book collection, and this is a book that I have seen around for a very long time, and then all of a sudden, like the last couple months, I've really seen Frederick Bachman's books kind of blow up and like people really talking about them. So I'm excited to get to this one soon because the stories that he takes on and tells, I just feel are going to be very compelling and easy to read. Plus, this is a book that my boyfriend really enjoyed and again thought I should read, so he borrowed it to me. The next book I have borrowed out is Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one was borrowed to me from my sister. I have read two other books by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I have really enjoyed her storytelling style. In each book, it's just slightly different in how she tells the story, but I've enjoyed both of them. I read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I read Daisy Jones and the Six, and so I'm excited to read Carrie Soto is Back and hopefully get this back to her very soon. I'm going to be seeing her in the beginning of February, so hopefully getting to this book fairly soon so I can return it to her then. And the last book that I have borrowed out from someone is The Inferno by Dante. This one is my mom's book. I think that she's had since like high school, and this is just like a classic that I want to read because it just, there's so many references to this in modern literature that I feel like I'd like to have the background of having read this book. And it's been a while since I've read some classics, so I would love to read this and then return it. So that was my next stack of books, and now my last stack of books is books that I own and that have been purchased in the last year. Well, purchased or acquired. So the first book that I have, I'm trying not to lose my stack here. The first book that I have is Someone Else's Shoes. This one I bought secondhand from that same secondhand bookstore that I'm always going to. And this is another, well, this one is not historical fiction, but it sounds really good. I've read quite a few books by Jojo Moyes, and this one was on my list. I have a whole list of books that I want to read, and when I saw it at the used bookstore, I decided to pick it up. It was on, this one was $14.50, but a lot of times the books are like $8, $8 just depending on like if they're paperback. Because this one's hardcover, it's slightly more, but I am excited to finally get to this one because not only will I get to check it off my physical TBR, but I'll also get to check it off that list. And this one I think I purchased in March of last year. I'm going to do my other hardcover book right away. This one is John Glenn, A Memoir. This is one I purchased at the same time that I purchased Someone Else's Shoes, so in about March of last year. I love space. I've read a lot of books about space, and this is obviously someone who's very important in the world of space discovery. So I am excited to read this and also continue working on that biographies project. Another book that I picked up used is The Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. I have read, which one? In the Garden of Beasts by this author, and I think I read one more that I checked out from the library, but I can't remember which one. So this one is about the Chicago World's Fair, and this is a nonfiction. So again, historical nonfiction. I really enjoy his writing style in the books that I have read by him, and how he like tells the story of being of a major historical event. So I'm excited to read this one at some point in time. I believe this was also part of that purchase that I made in March of last year. I bought quite a few books then. And then I believe this is the last one that I bought in March of that year. I could be wrong though. I have gone to that bookstore a couple times in the past year, but I think this was from that same trip. This is The Blind Assassin by Margaret Atwood. This is another one that's on my TBR list. So when I saw it at the used bookstore, I wanted to pick it up because picking up used, and it was $8. And then I'm also getting it off of that list. I've read a few books by Margaret Atwood, enjoy her writing style, enjoy her storytelling style. So that one I'm excited to read at some point this year. And then more recently, I went to that same bookstore. And so this was probably in early October, I believe, and I picked up 3 books. The first one is The Hidden Reality by Brian Greene. I believe this is the last one of his books that is published, as far as I know, that I do not own and have not read. This one was actually new at that same bookstore. They have a mix of new and used books, but because it's one that goes with a collection that I have by an author that I enjoy, I was willing to pay full price for it. So this is about physics, especially like quantum physics, and I really enjoy the way that he writes. It's a very digestible for the average reader, and I just love learning about space and all of that. So this kind of completes my collection, and I'm hoping to get to this in the next year so then it can be added by all of its friends on my shelf. The next one that I picked up on that trip was Relativity by Albert Einstein. So this is his paper on relativity. So it's very short. I picked this one up used. It's $4, but again, something that is so rooted in things that I read and learn about that I want to read the source content. So that one should not take me very long to read. Looking at the back here with all the notes, it's 120 pages, so I think it's under 100 pages, like the actual content part. And then the last one that I picked up on that trip, this one is also new, is The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. And this was an author that I really wanted to try out. I had seen a couple of the books being talked about by people that I follow, and I've just heard that his books are very impactful. So this is the book that he won the Nobel Prize in Literature for, so I thought this would probably be a good place to start. And when I was checking out at the bookstore, the person who was checking out my books was telling me about how they really enjoyed this book. So again, another short book, and I'm very excited to read this and kind of step into a new author. So hopefully I found a new favorite author there and have some new books that I can read. The next book that I have is Hook, Line, and Sinker. This is, I believe, the sequel to It Happened One Summer that this is another book that my sister passed on to me that I can either pass on whatever I want to do with, because she doesn't want them anymore. So it's just a romance novel. I'm hoping it's like cheesy and fun and can fulfill that need when I want to read something like that. The next book that I have is the Go Big Read book from last year, and it is How Minds Change. I got this one for free. I had a coupon for it. I graduated with my master's degree last year, and my program gave me a coupon to get the Go Big Read book, so I could just go to one of the libraries and pick it up, a copy of it. So I cannot resist a free book. So this one is about the science of belief, opinion, and persuasion. So I think this one will be a fun read. I just was not in the mental space to read this one last year when it kind of came up as a book that I could read. So I'm hoping to get to this in this next year, because I feel like I'm in a better mental space to be able to read this book. And then the next book that I have is The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. This is an author that I have read quite a few of her books. I actually pre-ordered this one in paperback, so I got it in October or November. I can't remember exactly when it came out, late last year. I don't know what this book is about. I just know that I enjoyed this author's writing and I want to step into more of her world. So I'm excited to get to this book pretty soon. And then the last book and the newest book to my collection is Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonham Young. And this is actually a book that I won in a Goodreads giveaway. Like I said, I cannot resist a free book. So any books that interest me, I usually enter the giveaway, you know, thinking that you're not gonna win. So when you get the congratulations email, it's very exciting. I'm hoping to get to this one really soon and to step into this author's writing. I've heard that she writes very interesting characters and tells stories in a fun way. So I'm excited to get to this book, hopefully very, very soon. So my bookshelf's a little bit of a mess, but that's okay. So that is my entire physical TBR currently. And like I said, I have one more book that is being added to it. I got the shipping notification yesterday that Onyx Storm is shipping, so I'm going to count that one, even though I'm pretty sure as soon as I get it, it's going to get read. But I'm gonna count all the books that I have to see how many I currently have in my physical TBR, so then I can refer back to this throughout the year. Okay, I currently have 26 books physically here, we 27 with Onyx Storm, so that is a huge improvement from last year. I think that's about 10 books less than I had last year at the beginning of the year on my physical TBR, which is very exciting, because that means that I have, once I read more of these, and like you saw, a lot of them are borrowed, I can purchase books that I'm really excited about to add to my collection. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.